Good evening, everyone. My name is Miss Reed. I am the founder of DamnDaddy.com, and this evening I have Miss Aprille Hunt here for me to discuss her daddy issues. I met Miss Hunt a few weeks ago at the African American Authors Expo at Morgan University, where she was hosting a panel discussion, and I just got up and asked a question about needing to revamp my website in order to get more people serious to take me seriously about interviewing them about their daddy issues. And she so graciously accepted and said, you can interview me. And I did a little bit of research about her, so I'll let her tell you some things about herself before we get on the call tonight. But she's an amazing woman. She's the founder of Women Recharged, and she has an awesome Facebook group, Coach, Speak, and Write for Profits. And I'll let her can tell you more.
Awesome. Am I in the main screen?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I am super thrilled and excited to share, always to share. I didn't know I had daddy issues, but I guess I do. I don't know if I would have necessarily classified it like that, but I guess we all have a little issue that bleeds into our everyday life. And so I'm excited to share, how to overcome some of those things and some of those things that I'm still working on. So professionally, I am a master business coach, author, speaker, and all of those amazing things. But at the core, I'm just, like everyone else, wanting to live life, enjoy life, and have healthy, happy relationships, both romantically and just in general. And I think that creating these types of platforms help us, give us the ability to do just that.
There's a few things that I heard you say that I'm so glad that you mentioned. That one, you wouldn't have classified them as daddy issues, and two, that we all have things to overcome in our lives. Yeah. So I'm glad you said that, because 2.5 years ago when I started my blog, one of the main points I addressed is that daddy issues manifest themselves differently in every person, and that lots of times, like for myself, even a few years ago, I wouldn't have said I had daddy issues because they don't look like they look stereotypically and what's portrayed to us in the media. And like you said, it all really boils down to the things that we learn in childhood that address and affect the way we impact and relate to other people going through our lives. And that you are constantly growing. So that's one point that I like to address and make sure people are aware. Like, I'm not here
absolutely
to host a monopoly. I don't have a monopoly on daddy issues. That we're all always growing. And with that being said, I'd like to begin by discussing the fact that you were adopted. So I know a few weeks ago, your mom had her birthday and your parents celebrated their anniversary, and you shared on your Facebook page that your mom adopted you and that she was meant to be your mom. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting because my mother was friends with my biological mother when we were growing up, and they actually went to church together. And, as being a part of that congregation and being a part of that church, I guess I was running around and my mom always had me. And so my mom being my mom who raised me, and this woman who was my biological mother had 2 kids already. I was the third, and she was only 18, 19 years old. And my mother didn't have any children, and they were the same age. So my mom was 19 as well. And my mom was dating my dad. Actually, my dad was in the military, and it's so funny. I've never actually told this story. My dad was living in Germany because he was stationed at Darby Army Base. And while he was stationed there, he actually proposed to my mom in the mail. He sent the ring in the mail, and my mother sent it back. My mother sent it back, and she sent it back, and then he sent it back. He was like, maybe you didn't read the note. It said, will you marry me? And so, can you imagine, like, who proposes in the mail? But he wasn't here. He's in Alabama. He's in Germany, so probably cost way too much to talk on the phone, and definitely not, flying over here to do it. So she said yes, but before she said yes, she was like, well, there's this little girl that that I'm going to raise, and if you want to marry me, you're going to have to marry her too, because it's a package deal. And so my mom and my dad, my mom said yes. They got married, and they legally adopted me from the lady at the church. And that's how I came to be Aprille. My name is Aprille. My name is not April. So Aprille Franks is my maiden name, and that's how I became Aprille Franks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the story.
That's a funny story, actually. I mean, I don't know anyone who's proposed in the mail, so I don't know why you've never shared that story before. That's actually
Right.
great.
I know. I really haven't. And they've been married for 41 years as of this past October 23rd.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
when we talked last week, it was still October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and you shared with me some of the feelings that you had toward your dad. You seem to have all these great life lessons that you learned from him that you share on your Facebook page, but you shared with me some more intimate details about his relationship with your mom. You mind discussing that?
Sure. So, my dad was born, raised in the South, and I mean, he was abusive. He was very abusive to my mom. That's what he saw. That's how he thought he was supposed to deal with women. That's how he thought, and I'm just, again, this is me paraphrasing because I haven't asked him, but I'm assuming that that's what he thought. He was down and be the man of the household and do as I say type thing. And so I did learn a whole lot, and for a long time I hated my dad and I hated men. And it's funny, I have this joke that I should have been a lesbian. And it's just really a crazy thing. Like you see certain things, you don't know why they are happening because you're a kid, you're younger. You just see pain, you see tears and hostility, but you don't really get it. You don't really know like what's going on. And so it really just helped me open my eyes to being strong and fearless, and excuse me, and unapologetic about being yourself, and owning your own power. Because as I was growing up, that's what I saw that my mother was missing. Was owning her own power and being able to really stand up to my dad and to really use her own voice. And she did start speaking up for herself. And it's funny. And I'm going to say it's funny because me and my brother basically whooped my dad's ass when I was about 12 years old. And that was the last time that he put his hands on my mom. So,
Wow. And I heard so many different things that I wanted to take the conversation next based on what you said. But that last point there, that once you and your brother intervened, that was the last time he put his hands on your mom. I think a lot of women underestimate their stories and how it impacts their children, and just how powerful your children can be as a tool to help you. Not saying that you should use your children in that way, but
absolutely.
I think that's great that you and your brother felt the need and had the courage and strength to stand up to your dad and your mom's defense.
Yeah. It's a situation. Like, you can't put your hands on my mom. Like, we're done with that. It's like once you understand that, basically this is it's abuse. No one ever says the words, you just see it and you witness it, but you never really say anything. And it's just interesting that to see this, because it was, happening with my grandmother and my grandfather as well. So,
yep. You mentioned that having that complex relationship in your household kind of made you hate men for a little while. In the summertime in July, I wrote a post about how my family indirectly taught me to be independent in relationships. How, trying to make sure that no one ever took advantage of me kind of worked backwards, whereas I didn't really know how to rely on people. And I saw a post of yours where you mentioned emasculating men in the past, even men who were not intimidated by you or your success. Did having a military man as a dad make you feel the need to be an independent woman in previous relationships?
No, it had nothing to do with him being in the military. I mean, he could have been a street sweeper, and if he was beating my mom, that was the problem. It wasn't what he did for a living. It was, he was just abusive. That's just how it was. And so no, I don't think it had anything to do with that at all. I don't think the military aided in that. He was that before.
Okay.
Yeah, he was that before.
From what I'm hearing about the question I asked, is not so much that his profession is what made you want to be an independent individual. It was more so, witnessing how you didn't feel your mom used her power that made you be an independent woman?
Yeah, I think that what it said to me, and something I used to say to myself was that I used to say, excuse me, I think it's interesting how, and this is what I used to say as a kid, how on one day, let's just say on Monday, you could be all lovey-dovey and this, that, and the third. And then on Tuesday, you could whoop my ass. And then on Thursday, we back lovey-dovey again, like you love me again. So that right there was not good. I didn't like that. I'm like, this is confusing. Like, do you love me? Do you love the woman or do you not love the woman? Because I'm confused because that don't look like that feels good. Right. And so that really is what played in my head. I was like, that will never be me. I was like, that will never be me. I will not allow this. Like, why is this happening? Because I always thought, like, why are women choosing to stay in this type of situation? And I was angry at my mom for not leaving. I couldn't understand it. I was like, why are we here? Like, this is crazy. Because it's not just traumatic for her. It's traumatic for us as the kids. Because we're like, what in the heck is going on? Why are we fighting over popsicle sticks or somebody slamming the door or, I mean, just anything that's trivial and what we would say today, petty,
Mm-hmm. The statistics show that children who grow up witnessing abuse, and that can be anything from actually being in the room with it, hearing it from the next room, seeing the aftermath of it, they say that young men are twice as likely to become abusers themselves, and young ladies are more vulnerable to becoming victims. Was that something that you ever experienced? Did you ever find yourself in a similar situation despite your feelings as a child and knowing that that's not what a loving relationship should look like?
Yeah, I think I found myself on both sides of the fence. I think I found myself not from a physically abusive standpoint, but I definitely was a tongue lasher. And it all came from a place of wanting to protect myself and making sure that I was on guard and that I let him know that I could do my own thing and I don't need so from that standpoint, like that was definitely a part of who I became as a result of that. And it's real interesting, it's really I'm doing this one woman show called Womanly Shit. And it's so funny because these are the type of conversations that women don't have, because it's like you see these things and it makes you feel a certain way and it makes you want to protect yourself. But then you still fall prey to some of this other stuff because you don't realize the psychological effect that these things have on you, as a young girl, as a teenager, as a young woman, into our womanhood. And it's just very interesting. So I found myself manipulating men because I wanted to make sure that I was ahead and that I was always thinking one step ahead of them, so that if anybody was going to get hurt, it wasn't going to be me. It definitely was not going to be me. It was going to be them. And I really have to fight that, and I think there's a little bit, because manipulation is not necessarily a bad thing unless you're using it for bad. So I think, but that really did play in my head for a long time. And then I did end up in an abusive relationship that I couldn't even believe I was in, because I was like, it really snuck up on me, honestly. It was like this 2-year wooing period, where everything wasn't great, but it was great enough, right? It was great enough. And then one day I woke up and I was like, what in the hell?
You had a Deborah Cox moment? Like, how did I get
He threw the ironing board at me moment. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm in this, and then it really opened my eyes. It's something about an ironing board coming at you that'll make you wake the hell up and you'd be like, okay, this is not my life. Like, I feel like my mother, like defenseless. And I'm like, I make money. I don't have to live here. We don't have no kids together. Even if we did, like, I'm like, I don't have to do this. And then I start planning my exit strategy in my head. They didn't have to tell nobody. And I did tell one girl at work, and we called it Operation A. And it was just, getting my stuff together and doing what I need to do. What is my plan? Where is my money going? Where am I moving to? And to hell with whatever else he was thinking about or had to say. It's putting things in motion.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to get yourself out of that. A lot of people don't even if they grew up in it, they don't think about that. They don't know how to develop exit plans for themselves. And it takes a lot to be able to first of all acknowledge this is what's happening and accept that, okay, I don't want it to happen anymore, so how am I getting out?
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little bit more about what you called your teenage phase, where you were kind of like wild and out of control. And how did you wind up getting yourself together from a wild teen to the woman you are now?
Well, that's a real interesting story. I didn't say I wasn't wild now. That's the first thing. It's just different. I think that, what really took me into that place was this desire to have this loving male figure. And there's no way. It's real interesting how men are. Because it's like, they'll be in a relationship. They'll be beating your mom, but they'll be good to you. It's very conflicting, and it's, and I don't think parents realize.
It's cognitive dissonance.
I don't think they realize, and I don't know how much you curse on your show, but I don't really realize how much, if parents realize how much they fuck up their kids through their actions and it's not a judgment, because people do a lot of times the best they know how. But it's really important to like really pay attention to look at your issues as a grown up and be like, okay, am I passing? Because we all have something. Am I negatively passing these things on to my kids? And showing them and demonstrating to them these things, that they're going to carry. And I say that because I work with so many women, and I forgot your question already. We're going to have to come back to it.
Okay.
But I work with so many women, and I'm like, there's a result to that. There is an absolute result to that. And we have to be really careful, as parents. Come back to your question.
My question was about your transition from wild teen to the woman you are today. But I like what you were saying, because that is something. I don't have any children, but that is something from reflecting on my own upbringing and all of the things that I witnessed, experienced, maybe not directly in my own household, but from relatives that I stayed with, visited, see the impact on my cousins and siblings and things of that nature. I do agree with you that people should take a deeper look at what their actions, my mom, she didn't allow us to curse. We weren't allowed to say stupid in the house, and she didn't like for adults to call their children stupid or call each other stupid in front of children, because something that was held up high regard in our house was education and trying hard. You may not be the smartest person in the class, but if you work hard, you can get those grades, you can accomplish X, Y, and Z. So that was something she was very protective of, the language that was used in our house, as far as how it impacted me, my younger sister, and my cousins that stayed with us. But all of the adults in the house didn't necessarily agree with that. And seeing how, as the oldest one and as the one hearing it the longest, how it impacted me versus my cousins who had to go home with their parents who did not agree with that ideal, and how it's impacted them.
I can see that. And then just to go back to your point on the teenage and that element, kind of that looking for love in all the wrong places. And it kind of led me to this teenage life of promiscuity. And it's boy, I tell you, women, we are like the strongest creatures ever. I don't even know if we realize, like, we really do run the world. I think once we really realize that, like, I just think the world will be just such a better place. So for me, I was sleeping around and just doing all kind of crazy stuff. Just like, I can't even believe it. And I guess I can't believe it. And some of it was fun, right? And some of it felt good, but a lot of it was just self-destructive behavior, to mask like what really was going on. And so then that led into, it just snowballs into, now you're 21 and you're on your third abortion. That's my story. Right. And then you look up and you have more kids, maybe by more than one guy. And then you look up and you're, you look up and you freaking 30. And then you look up and you're 35. And you still have these issues. You're wondering why things aren't working out. And it's like, okay, wait, I got to stop and get a hold of myself. Like, what is the root of this cycle? You know, what is the root of my decisions? Like, why am I deciding again and again the same types of things? And so I really had to really stop and ask myself, like, what am I attracting? What am I doing? How can I become better? How can I have better? And that was by doing better and feeling better and believing, you know, better about myself. And it really started there. And so that helped with the craziness of, you know, that those early years, you know, the teenage and the young 20s, just becoming more self-aware.
Do you recall a specific moment where you had that, let me look at my life?
Yeah, I do. I was pregnant by a guy. Lord, I never even told that story. I need to write that down. That might need to go on the show. So I was pregnant. So let me tell you, this is crazy. Well, I can't tell the whole story because it might go on the show, but I'll say that I was pregnant by a guy, and we were not dating, but we were very friendly, obviously, but we were friendly still. Like, it wasn't just like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It was like we had a friendship. And, but I had met this other guy who happened to sell drugs. And I was 20. And I already had a daughter who was 2 at the time. I had her when I was 18. That's my daughter who actually is in the Air Force, and she's pregnant now. She's 21. And so I'm about to be a grandma. So, so I started dating this drug dealer, and one night we ended up getting into this altercation with several other individuals. And it led to me shooting. It led to him shooting. It led to us having a car crash, totaling the car, us like kicking somebody's door in, us going to the police station, us getting it led to this whole array of events. Didn't get arrested or anything or charged, but it led to this whole array of events that had me sitting next to him and me saying to him, I need some money to move. Like, I have to relocate. I need to get out of here. This is not my life. This is not how I was raised. Like, I'm just playing a bad girl right now. I want to go home. Right. It was like that situation. I'm like, what is happening? Like, we shooting now? Like, are you serious? Like we could have killed somebody. We could have died. You know, I was like, yeah, this is not my life. And so from there, I moved to Dallas, Texas, about 6 weeks later. And this was in 1997. This was Valentine's Day, 1997 is when this happened. And by April 1st, 1997, I was in Dallas, Texas, and I restarted my life over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was it. Getting shot at.
I think I would hope that would wake a lot of folk up.
Yeah, right. So I'm like, yeah, this is not for me. Yeah, this is not
know your limits. You got to know your limits. And then I heard you say, this is not how I was raised. So that stood out to me because I don't know if you saw, but there's a whole thing on the news where the young lady was like poisoning her roommate. And I was watching TV One this morning, and one of the respondents, that was the first thing they said, was like, who raised this kid? Because that was just some super wild behavior to even think that was okay to do to someone.
Yeah.
But that's something I focus a lot on my blog, is like sometimes double standards. Like when something happens in a woman's life, it's like, who raised her? But sometimes when it's men, it's just like, oh, it's just a guy being a guy. And we don't really always hold men responsible. Like I saw a post the other day that said, behind every deadbeat dad is a deadbeat grandmother. And I sent it to my mom, and we kind of laughed at that. But just while I was saying that just now, it made me think about that post, because oftentimes that dad's parents,
women are enabling these men, and
right,
we have to live with them and sleep with them and hope that they can be a man to the household. It's freaking ridiculous. And all y'all women with sons, do better.
Absolutely.
Because your titties can't come home with me and him. I'm just saying, it is a nightmare to deal with a man that is stuck on his mama and he's supposed to be a grown-ass man. I mean, it's horrible. I watch it, and I cannot stand it because it's not helpful. It is not helpful. Y'all know it's not helpful.
And it's cyclical, just like you were mentioning how, you feel your dad treated your mom that way because that's all he knew, that's what he saw, that's what he was conditioned to believe because his father was abusive towards your grandmother. I think that a lot of times women who raise sons don't realize that being an enabler in his life is making him probably the same way that his father was his grandmother enabled his father, and that's why you're doing it alone.
Yeah, the same thing that didn't work out. It's very interesting because I was talking to a friend this morning and he was sharing with me how his daughter was experiencing something similar in that the boyfriend had moved out, but kind of moved out, but then was kind of still in, didn't want to help with the rent, but he's living with his mom over here, got all his stuff over there. I'm like, his mama should be in his stuff because that's a woman. That is a woman. Yeah, that's your son, but that is another woman. And you know what that plight is like. It's like you need to man up, handle your business. If you don't want to be there, leave. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, we really do all around have to do better. And I really wish, I'm telling you, this whole conversation with mothers and sons, I don't have any sons. I have a daughter, and my job is to try to empower my daughter so that these sons don't abuse her, you know?
Yeah.
And this is real. Like right now, we're dealing with real life, and our sons go out and they do things as a man. And I think that's what women with sons forget, that this little boy who you helping him use the bathroom for the first time and, trying to teach him how to be a man and all this stuff, he's going to grow up to have to be somebody's man. And he needs to understand that you're going to hold him to a high regard, and it's hard because we want to baby our babies because of what we're missing, and it's just a very interesting cycle and dynamic. So I can tangent on
finding that balance between how do you nurture versus how do you raise the expectation for something you may not have had or experienced.
Absolutely.
So I know you mentioned your daughter, and congratulations. I didn't know that she was expecting, so congratulations on that. I know that we talked about this a little bit last week, as far as when you met your husband, he was finding out after 13 years that he was a parent as well, and how that impacted your relationship, having to be with someone who was finding his way as a father and also finding his way as your man.
Yeah. So when he found that out, that was a very interesting dynamic because he didn't know. He did remember sleeping with this person 13 years ago, but he didn't know that that was his son, and she never said it was until she found him on MySpace, actually. And so, which was interesting. And so we all kind of got together at the same time. I met him. He had just literally, like the month before, met his son and my daughter. So we all, kind of were a blended family right away.
Okay. How do you all make that work as far as learning to be a blended family and being supportive for one another, creating what you did not see yourself?
I never said it worked. So I'll tell you what does work and what didn't. Both of our kids were 13 when we got together. So that was already a challenge. My daughter, spoiled brat. His son, was the oldest of three, raised very differently. My daughter raised, she had everything, both grandparents. He was raised, nothing wrong with living in a mobile home park, but it's just a different life. Like his life and my life was totally different. And my daughter's life, rather, was different. And so bringing all of us in the house, my daughter was like, she didn't want to have nothing to do with my boyfriend at the time or his son. Like, she hated the whole thing. She was like, why do we have to be here? We're not spending all of our time together. So that was a challenge. The other challenge was when you're taking someone else in your home, my husband did not know this child either, even though it was his son. He didn't know nothing about this boy. I mean, really. So we didn't know any of his habits, of anything, and I don't have a relationship with him at all. Like, I have nothing to do with him today. Like, we don't talk, nothing. Because we just never really built that. He didn't want it. So when he moved out, when he turned 18, that was kind of it for him. And I'm not saying that I'm not open to it, but it's just not our reality. And so, to be quite frank, my husband is closer to my daughter than he is to his son. And that's just how it happened to be. They're not estranged. They talk. But for us, we make the effort, and that's it. So as long as we make the effort, holidays, invites, birthdays, family gatherings, whoever shows up, that's who wants to be there. Whoever doesn't show up, then they don't show up.
That's a motto my mother lives by. Don't worry about who's not there. Worry about who came.
Absolutely. So that's just it. And, you can't force people into your way of doing things or being, and it's like, and I think that's okay. I really do. I think we get and I think a part of it, I think it's okay because I'm adopted. Like, I would take in a kid right now and I could care less about where his blood relatives are if I pick this kid up off the street. It's like, whoever's your family is who's there. And that's how I was raised. So for me, if my stepson has found his family, then good. That's great. Go forth and be amazing with that. If that's what you know what I'm saying? So I don't feel like there's anything broken about our reality. I think that it just is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about how when you and your brother intervened, that was the last time your dad put his hands on your mom. I asked you last week about forgiveness and whether or not you have forgiven your dad, because if just from observing what you normally share, that's not something that anyone would even be able to gauge that there was ever any, animosity towards him, or that you did not like him and did not like men based on the way he treated your mom. So do you ever feel like you reached a point of forgiveness for your dad?
Yeah. So I think, like I shared with you the other day, my dad was doing what my dad knew how to do based on how he was raised. And so it's very interesting because I guess maybe I don't know, I'm gonna say 3-4 years ago, my father had a mini stroke, and this mini stroke landed him in the hospital, and I happened to be home for vacation visiting. And so while I was at home for vacation visiting, I rode to the ambulance with him, to the hospital, in the ambulance. My mom was kind of frantic, and so I, because I'm the calm, I can handle everything type person. Whether I can or can't, that's my role. And so I went to the hospital, and I was angry once the doctors had said that, basically he had induced a stroke through his alcoholism. Mm-hmm. And so after that, and I went home, and they, he was going to live and all that, and he just needed a couple of days in the hospital. I just wrote him a letter, and I was so pissed because it's funny. We went our whole life. I'm 41 years old at the time of this interview. And I went my whole life up until about, I guess, 37-ish. And no one ever said anything to my dad about our upbringing or the fact that he was abusing my mom. Like, no one said anything. Can you imagine? Like, you could live a whole existence. Somebody's beating somebody's ass in your house and nobody says nothing. Nobody says nothing. We just gonna pretend like this is not happening. And then we wonder why we all screwed up and got so many issues and things that we're trying to overcome at these ages as we're getting older because shit's not working. So I literally am like, wrote him this letter, and I was like, I'm mad. I'm mad because what if you died? If you had died, you would have left us with nothing. And I ain't talking about money because we don't need that. I'm talking about nothing. Like, no legacy, no positive, like, what do you believe in? What do you want us to do? What do you want? a life to look like, and when you're not here, like, we don't even know what you even care about because you're so busy wreaking havoc on the family through your alcoholism and your actions. And I wrote that in this letter, and I gave it to him when he got home from the hospital, and I walked out the door. I left. And that was the last time my father had a drink. The last time. And he has since then, he has had his leg amputated. He has lung cancer. It spread to his brain. He's doing fine. And, you know, him and my mom are getting along better than they ever have. It's just, life is very interesting.
Thank God you had the courage to write that letter. Because when you were saying that, all I could think of is not just he would leave you with nothing, but he would leave you with that feeling that I never said anything.
Absolutely.
So
it's this fear. It's this fear that bullies and abusers kind of they instill in everyone by default, that we can't say anything. And that's why I'm such an advocate for women. You can't shut me up. Like, you just can't. Like, I refuse to be that person. Like, you just can't shut me up. Like, I'm always going to be the advocate. I'm a fighter. So if there's something breaking out, these earrings is coming off, like, what's happening? I might be a professional and all that. But if it comes to the point where I need to stand up for somebody else or for myself, then the gloves are off. Like, what are we going to do? Because there's no running and hiding anymore. You know, you got to be willing to stand up for your life or for the life of somebody else who is in a place where they don't see where they can stand up for themselves. And that's the role I took on as a child. And that's the role I still carry today. I am the advocate, period. Like, you just can't abuse women or say negative things to women or take advantage of women in my presence, because it just has a special place for me. Like, there's something in you that you don't believe that you possess, and you possess it. Like, when we think about it, no decisions are made without female influence. Where your kids go to the doctor, what schools you go to, the house you live in, more than likely those decisions are made by the parents. To what you're wearing, to what kind of drawers you got on, to what kind of food comes in the house, which means we need to do better with that, because we the ones killing our families and got all these hypertension and crap going around because we act like we can't cook better and bring in better food. That's real. The men is not the ones doing all the cooking and frying up everything. And we got hypertension and getting limbs cut off because we got diabetes. I'm just saying. So when we realize how much power we actually have, we are controlling all these decisions. All these decisions are our decisions. Why? Why are they our decisions?
Men would say that we're more logical thinkers. I believe. I know a lot of men feel like women are emotional, but I think that it's actually the opposite. Women
are problem solvers.
Yes. When you're done with your one-woman show, I think your next book should be called I Am the Advocate.
Oh, thank you.
Because when you said that, you really sound like, there was a lot of conviction there.
Yeah. Thank you. But so I mean, so much. Like, wow, we control everything. Things don't even come into the house. We buy the curtains, the mattress. Like, is mama happy with it? The coat, the car. He ain't just went out and bought no car. In most cases, he has not just went out and bought a car. He done asked you, took you around, you done rode in it, baby, you like this. Everything.
Not, are you comfortable? Are they warm?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we walk around and act like we don't have control over nothing, and acting like we have no power and no voice.
So along those lines, as far as having no power and no voice, I saw that you had an initiative, Mommy or Not, and how women have that control to be a mom or to not be a mom. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what has come of it since you've announced it?
Yeah, so we actually sidebarred Mommy or Not to do Unbroken Resilience, which is my short film on rape survival. But Mommy or Not is a project that we will be completing probably in 2019. And the premise behind it is, where it came from for me was that I have had 8, as a woman, you go to the doctor, and I know they don't ask men this type of stuff, but I bet they don't ask men how many women have you impregnated, but they always want to know how many times we've been pregnant. I bet they are not asking men, how many women have you impregnated? Put that on the damn questionnaire. Because why does that matter? So anyway, I digress. But it made me think, because I always put 8. I have 2 kids. So there's 6 children that are not here. So where are they? So I have 2 live births. Or is it 7? 2 live births, 3 miscarriages, and 3 abortions. And so the reason why I wanted to write this or do this story on Mommy and Not is because women have options, and it's not about pro-life or pro-choice. It's just about, what is your reality? Is it infertility? Are you a single mama with 10 kids, with 7 baby daddies? Are you married and decided not to have children? Like I know a client that her and her husband decided not to have kids. Like, what is your decision around being a mommy or not? I know women that use abortion like birth control, that have 9, 10 abortions. I've had 3 abortions, and I can't be an advocate and then be lying about the experiences of my life. Like, this is just what it is, and for a long time, oh my God, I was so guilted, and I felt like God was punishing me because I had those abortions, and then I could not carry after that. So I had 3 miscarriages after that, and I could not carry. And then I had to have a hysterectomy, which took away my choice totally, and that was something also to deal with, another womanly thing, things that we deal with. So Mommy or Not is about the decisions to become moms or not, and the challenges that we experience by going through these things, whether it's miscarriage, whether it's choosing to have kids, not have kids, infertility issues, or whatever. It's just things that we don't discuss because there's so much shame around being a mom, and the way you decided to become a mom or not. And so that's what I wanted to bring to the forefront.
That sounds great. I'll be looking for that to come back in 2019. We're nearing the end of our time together. And my final question, something that stood out to me that you said the day I met you was that you have no GED, no college degree, and that you had made $500,000 in 1 year's time, if I'm not mistaken. And for myself, I have 1 degree and 2 pending and all this debt. And my friends and I talk about it all the time about how college is somewhat of a scam, and how if somebody had told us that we could just go out there and have the experiences that create our dreams, as opposed to spending more money to be around other people having these experiences, we might be in a better place. Can you tell me why you tell people that you would never get a GED unless it was to empower someone else?
Yeah, because I don't need it. I just moved into a brand new office. My office is huge. I have this whole big space. My team is here. Like, what people are getting education typically because they want to advance in their career so that they can make more money. I'm already doing that. So why would I waste my time and spend money to a university that's going to teach me outdated information that I could learn on my own out in real world application? And so I don't see the need for it. My clients have PhDs and multiple degrees. Most of my clients are already 6-figure earners, and millionaires. And that means nothing in this business. I just had this conversation with someone earlier. It means absolutely nothing, because just because you have a degree don't mean you know shit about running a business at all. Just nothing. Just like if you don't know how to do hair. Like, that's just not what you do. Or you're not a mechanic because you didn't, it's like, do what you need for what you want to do. I think we're so conditioned to try to follow this path that it just doesn't work for everyone. It never did. It never did. But everyone's trying to live this American dream. Just what about your dream? Live that. Why don't you create that? People are so busy trying to fit into this mold, whatever this mold is. I'm not trying to fit into any kind of mold. I live the life that I want to live. And I think that if it were, and it's interesting because I was a keynote speaker for the Education Council. Funny, isn't it? The Education Council. So a bunch of educators and social workers. And so after my talk, and it was several hundred people there. And again, I was the keynote. They paid me. I traveled to wherever I traveled to. And they were like, one of the ladies said, don't you just want to get your degree? Girl, no. Was you missing in the whole talk that I had? No, why? Why stop and go to school and do that? Like, and then go do what? To go get a job? I don't need a degree to own a business.
That's true. I like what you said as far as people trying to fit into a mold and all of that. What I was thinking about is I used to teach middle school here in Baltimore and feeling like there was not enough exposure. I'm from New Jersey. I was exposed to a lot. Was there some type of moment that you had that made you know, like, I don't need this? I don't need this. Because for me, I had a lot of kids who had behavior problems, and they were shocked when I would flip it around on them. You have leadership potential.
Yeah.
And instead of being a knucklehead and leading people to misbehave during my class, how about you be the leader of the classroom discussion about the actual lesson? And that actually helped. But I think a lot of times it's a part of labeling. We want to label everybody. We want to see the negatives instead of speaking the positives over. So that was one thing I miss about teaching, is being able to expose the kids to what I saw in them that they could use for more positive behaviors as opposed to what they were currently using them for.
You know what really helped me was being exposed to other cultures and countries. And so, I grew up in Germany. I started school in Germany, and I grew up with, we used to go to Czechoslovakia and, Yugoslavia and Paris and, what I'm saying, London. Like, that was my childhood. So I didn't grow up like the average African-American little Black girl. I was all over the country, all over the world, with my parents. And it just opened me up to like, wow, all these things exist. And because over there, no one cared that I was, actually people enjoyed that I was Black. It was like, they would play, you'd be sitting on the bus and they'll be like, wow, they will literally be grabbing your hair and just like, oh, it's so pretty, and it was like, oh, well, I'm pretty, okay. This is not my hair. This is a wig. But whatever was going on with my little twisties and my plaits and my little barrettes, they just were fascinated by it, the kinky, stuff. And that really opened me up to like a world where I could do whatever I want. And I'm not going to allow, I just didn't have this whole, I didn't really have that whole Black experience either initially. Like, I didn't even know I was Black because no one ever said it. No one was like, you Black and you can't have X, Y, and Z because you Black. That just didn't happen because overseas, no one cared, And so when I came over to the States, then that's when people were like, well, who you think you are? I was like, who? Aprille? Like, who are you? So I really didn't get it. I was like, oh, am I supposed to be different? Like, why people acting so crazy? And then I learned that, of course, there was a different dynamic, in the United States when it comes to people of color. But it's just interesting. And I think that people can do whatever they want. And I think it's important for you to create your own dreams and your own destiny and stop trying to fit into a mold that was never created for you to begin with. And that doesn't have to be a racial thing. That could be a female thing. I'm a feminist. I'm not pro-Black. I'm pro-female. And we were up under the thumb deeper for a longer period of time. Civil rights movement was over and women still needed permission to get a loan. You had to be married in 1980 to get a loan. If you wanted to get a loan, start a business, get a loan and do something, you had to be married and your husband had to sign for you. In 1980, we were still living like who even knows what. And so there's so many different things I think that women, we just need to harness. And I think it's really important that we learn how to stick together and focus more on what goes inside of this amazing creation than what goes on the outside of it.
Thank you. It is 8:30 on the nose my time, 7:30 on your time. And I don't want to hold you longer than we agreed upon, but I thank you so much for your time this evening. That was a great point to end on. It just made me think about the day I met you when you were saying, I don't follow anybody. I'm a thought leader. And in order to remain a thought leader, I have to stay tuned to who I am. So that's important to empower whoever's listening, whether you are a woman or you consider yourself pro-Black, whatever path you're leading.
Yes.
Make sure that you're pouring positivity into yourself and staying plugged into resources that will help you be full so that you can then give to others.
Yes.
And thank you for your time tonight. It was great, as a pleasure, just like it was last week. And I appreciate you for allowing me to share you with my audience.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'll have you on too, so we can talk about it. Once I do the one woman show, it'll be great.
Okay. So, I mean, you have my email. I'll look forward to it. If you have a moment, would you mind if we take 2 questions? If not, that's fine as well.
No, I can take 2 questions.
If you are listening and you have a question, I will unmute you. I'm going to unmute you guys. And if you have a question, just introduce yourself. And Miss Aprille has agreed to answer 2 questions.
Hi, Aprille. My name's Letitia. I am a life coach and self-care strategist, and I want to thank you for sharing your story, because as a fellow person who grew up in a complicated situation that just seemed very normal to me, I appreciate hearing other people's stories. And I just wanted to say, like I think it was one of the points you made was when you talked to your father about his alcoholism and things like that, and how important you, and it sounds like you and your siblings were to him making changes kind of throughout his life. It was like y'all fighting him, stopped him from the abuse of your mother, and also you writing that letter to him stopped him from drinking. I think that's a really important point. And if that's not a part of your story that you shared, that should be, because that is such a powerful thing. But my father actually left me with nothing, much like you described. What was your fear? What was the fear around that made you write that to him?
That's a really good question. I think my fear really was just that, and then what? Because it was like, you live this whole life. You know what I'm saying? You live this whole life and then you just died and there was nothing. I don't want that to be me. I want folks drooling over the casket like I was crying over Whitney Houston when she died, like that was my mama. Like, I want to make a difference. I'm like, are we just living to just die and no one even cares? Like, really cares? Because you were such a hellraiser in a negative way? Like, that was scary to me. You know, that I'm just like, because I'm such a legacy person. I'm like, I want to leave something behind. I want to make a difference. I want to be somebody that was significant in the world. And what I saw was the direct opposite of that for our family. And that was not okay. Forget the rest of the world, right? Just for the family, that was just not okay. So that really was my greatest fear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other listener this evening happens to be my mom. Mom, do you have a question or a comment? Anything you would like to share in response? I've unmuted you.
Hi, Miss Aprille.
Hi there. How are you? Lord, I'm just testing up the storm. I didn't know Mama's was on here.
No, it's been a pleasure listening to you. Your story has a lot of weight because I can relate to lots of it. Level. She had shared with me previous to me being on the call that you had made millions and that you may have some advice in which to help me, I guess, elevate my career as a realtor. I'm a realtor as well as an investor, and I kind of want to do a lot bigger projects. And like yourself, I don't have the degrees and I don't want to. She'll tell you that. I have attempted to go back to college several times with the intention of getting my law degree. And I just told her, I said, listen, maybe I'll do it at 70 just to say, okay, check that off the list. I have a desire to sit in anyone's classroom unless it's something I'm doing right now that benefits me right now, not something that benefits someone else or to please someone else. So I totally relate to you with regards to not accumulating a lot of debt and going back to school for that reason. But my question more so has to do with how you made millions in real estate.
So it wasn't the millions in real estate. It's been as an entrepreneur in general. I made more money doing what I do now than I did in real estate, although I did well there. What I will say, I really romantic about being a realtor. There was something about driving people just didn't sit well with me. So what I did was I took a little bit more control over, not that that doesn't work, because I know one of my clients is the bomb realtor. She's with Keller Williams. Her name is Amber Noble Garland, and she's actually Layla Ali's manager. And she does
her.
really
I'm
well.
with Keller Williams as well, and I know her.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so, so Amber does an amazing job, and she just released a couple books. I think what I did on the investment side, to be quite frank, was I started coaching, and I took a course back then. Do you remember Carlton Sheets?
I do.
I took his first course. From there, I took Russ Whitney's course. And then I started implementing. The one thing, Ms. Reed, that really helped me is being an investor and an immediate implementer. So grass cannot grow under my feet when it comes to what I'm learning and the way that I'm applying it. If I bought it, it's because my intention is to apply it and to make it work for me, and to think really outside of the box and not be afraid. Like, one of the things I'm really good at is I don't have the arrogance or the ego to feel like I have to do everything alone without help. So I'm like, listen, who wants to get in on this? Who wants to do this with me? Who's interested in this? Just by simply asking the question and having the conversation. And so for me, that's really where it started. Was I was laying in bed one night and I bought that course, and I bought my first house. And they owed me $436 back at the closing table. And that was that whole no money down, thing. And then I just kept learning from there and kept reinvesting and growing until I bought rental properties. And then I shifted into a totally different arena, and I was making about $30,000 a month before I started doing what I'm doing right now. And so it really was investing in the right education. But it wasn't just the investing, it was and then implementing right away.
Awesome. Definitely. She'll tell you that's the same thing. She often invites me to do certain things, and I explain to her, listen, I have to implement, but I can't take on anything else. So I respect that. I do.
Yeah. So getting into action mode, like, that's the most important thing. A lot of times, like, I posted a post that said, are you ready to stop learning and start earning? Like, at some point, you have to understand what season you're in. You know enough to get to your next level. The money has to come. Like, the money is there. In my opinion, money is the easiest thing to make. It is the easiest thing to make, is for me to make money. I probably would have to try that pound cake 4 or 5 times before I got it right. But ask me to go make $10,000 by Sunday, and I could do that, no problem. I could do that tomorrow. So the money is the easy thing. It's once you start applying, it's what you learn during the plight of the application that really elevates you. The people that are sitting on the bench that are still learning and learning and learning and learning and learning and learning, they miss out on the mistakes that will be inevitable to their success, while you are making them fumbling, getting up, fumbling, hitting milestones, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned that you started making the money once you started coaching, because to me, I feel like there is an abundance of coaches now in general, at least in my timeline, my feed, and my perspective. There's a lot more than there used to be. But I had been saying to my mom, like, Mom, you should teach this. Like, you always doing this for free and that for free for that person. Oh, I'm not ready yet. And I said, well, Mom, it's not about being at one level or another. It's about teaching those who understand less than you.
Yeah, somebody don't know nothing. So help them. Somebody don't know nothing. Like, they just got a dream. They laying on the couch. They didn't go to real estate school. They haven't bought their first house. They don't know anything about anything. Enlighten somebody at every level. There's this enlightenment, that happens. And the more you earn, the more you can invest in your learning, which keeps you elevating and the people behind you elevating as well. Yeah. Good stuff.
Thank you again. Thank you for sharing your life with us, your business life with us, and I appreciate your time tonight.
Yes,
Did you have any questions for me or anything going forward?
I don't, but whenever this is available, let me know so I can share it with my people too.
Okay.
Okay.
It usually takes me about 24 hours to get it up, but once it's up, I'll let you know.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right. Have a good evening.
I will. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.